Hey, it's TDA and welcome back to Satisfactory. This is my bite-sized run, which is aimed at those of you who want to progress through this game without every build taking weeks to complete, but still have an awesome looking factory. Last time around we built this pretty decent looking steel factory, early steel factory, so we now have beams and pipes being up and running in terms of production, and that of course means that we now have access to a lot more complicated recipes. But there's a little problem with that. So if we look at tier 4, there is a lot of pipes and rotors required for the advanced steel production. In order to get melee combat improved, we are going to need more rotors. If we look at hypertubes, we're going to need a lot of pipes as well as some industrial beams, which we haven't actually automated yet. And if we look at logistics mark 3, we're going to need a lot of pipes and beams. Now, I did promise you in the last few episodes that we want to be effective, but we also do not necessarily want to handcraft a lot of stuff anymore. So that is not what we're going to do. No, we're going to be extremely efficient about this, and we're going to do something else while we are actually producing all of this stuff. And that something else will have to do with the resource sink bonus program, or in other words, the awesome sink, which we're going to be unlocking in that way. And if you haven't unlocked it yet, you should have all the materials by now easily without any handcrafting involved. So go ahead and unlock that if you haven't done so, and then we can move on with actually putting that to use. This is a perfect moment in the progress of upgrading your production to spend a little bit of time making your life doing so a lot easier. And in order to do that, we are going to use the MAM. Now, of course, that is the building that we have under the special category that we have unlocked for quite a while already, but haven't actually used. Now, the way I like to use it is actually placing a small personal storage box next to it and dumping all those random items that you uncover during your travels around the map, like the spitter remains, all the creature remains basically, all the random ores that you find like Ethereum ore, as well as, where is it? There it is, the raw quartz, things like that. That's the types of ores that we haven't really unlocked just yet, but you do come across every now and then. You can just simply cut them down, put them in the storage box, and use them at this point in the game while you're kind of waiting for all your production to do its thing, but you still want to make sure you're spending your time useful. Now, when it comes to the research tree, I actually just recommend it at this point. You unlock whatever you can unlock. You might not be able to unlock a lot, depending on how many creatures you killed, how many types of creatures you've killed, if you've done any additional exploring. I haven't done a lot of exploring in this particular playthrough myself, so I can unlock a couple of these basic earlier things, but I specifically want to focus on two things in this episode. First of all, we are going to make sure we unlock a couple of things in the silver tree, and then we are going to unlock a couple of things in the Ethereum tree, because both of those things will make our lives a lot easier, and making our lives easier makes sure that we can progress faster through the remainder of the game. So first off, we are going to focus on silver. Now, you might not actually have a lot of silver. I do actually have a tiny amount, so it only takes 3 seconds to unlock that, but you will quickly see that in order to get any further down this tree, we're going to need some coal, we're going to need a lot more silver.
To the resource scanner.
But unlocking that first one, make sure you can scan for it.
New research available in the MAM.
Thank you, Ada. And if you scan for it, you will notice we should have a node somewhere over here. It takes a while for the pulse to actually reach there. There we go. So it's pretty close to where we already are. And let's make our way over there, bring some of those personal miners if you haven't already. And that just makes mining and all that stuff a lot easier. Now, the silver node shouldn't be too hard to reach, and if you really want, you can place a miner here, put the whole facility, etc. We're likely going to repurpose this particular node for something else later on, and automating a lot of stuff with silver initially in this part of the game is not really all that useful. So I just recommend going here, grabbing as much silver as you can carry, just to make sure you don't have to come back for a long while. But don't automate this, don't make a truck stop and everything like that. It's going to take up a lot of time that you can spend doing something more useful. Specifically, while your little portable miners are doing their job for you, I recommend that you do two more things. Bring, of course, your chainsaw, hopefully you have that on you all the time, and cut down some of these little fungus-like trees. If you do that, you'll get a nice notification.
The
Hopefully it'll trigger.
Within this fungus suggests strong molecular bonding features frequently observed in adhesives and medicine, both beneficial for field research. A new research tree can now be accessed in the MAM.
And cutting down a few more of those fungus-like trees will get you a lot of that mycelia, which you can then use to make sure you progress down another tree in the MAM as well. So just go around. There should be a lot of those trees over here giving you that mycelia. You will also actually get some silica, which is going to be very useful to unlock something else. So all in all, just make sure you cut down a little bit of that while you're waiting for the portable miners to do their work. And while you're doing all of that...
Breaking news from Earth. Widespread chaos and mayhem.
And apparently...
World President urges all citizens to do their part and harvest alien artifacts.
And apparently there is another one of those notes nearby as well. Thank you for interrupting me. If you walk a little bit into this direction, it's actually very close to where our coal facility is, as you can see. There is also a crash pod over here, and that crash pod has only the requirement of a little bit of screws. You can just open it up, and you can get yourself one of those hard drives. So, very useful. Just make sure you don't die, because those plants over there are very nasty. Just run off, and they will stop shooting at you very soon. Now, once you have a stack or so of silica, you have some sulfur, bring also some coal with you. You might actually want to pick up some of those steel pipes and steel beams that we are producing right now as well. You're going to need an equipment shop as well as a little work table, so you can actually make a lot of stuff efficiently, and then you're ready to make a huge step into your research production in the map. Now, there is nothing in the tree that you shouldn't unlock, but there are a couple of things that I think you should prioritize. So under the alien organisms tree, if you haven't done so yet, there is inflated pocket dimension, which basically gives you a lot more inventory space. You only need 1,000 cables. That sounds like a lot, but by now you should easily have that produced in one of our facilities that has been working since almost the start. And if you really want it, you can also get an additional hand equipment slot. Now that actually does cost quite a bit, because you need 500 steel beams for that. But if you're also going to be running around with guns, I never do, by the way, but if you are going to be using those, then you might want to make sure you have an additional slot unlocked for that, so you don't have to switch around your equipment all the time. Down the mycelia tree, there's actually, down on the left over here, there are the parachutes. Now, parachutes will help you not fall to your death. I never really use those, but again, they might come in handy if you tend to plummet to your death every so often. There's not too much that I think is vital in this tree, but you have a lot of mycelia if you've been cutting down those mushrooms, so you might as well start unlocking a couple of those things. Nutrients, again, I don't think it's essential. However, in the power slugs tab, you are going to be able to unlock the power shards, and as well as the overclock production. And this will allow you to not only overclock your buildings, but also underclock them. And that just means you can fine-tune your buildings to not take too much power if you're underclocking them, or you can actually upgrade them so you can overclock them and get more production out of them. So really useful. You also might want to get the slug scanning, and just so you are able to find them a little bit easier. But all in all, generally speaking, everything in this tree is going to be very useful. However, the most important of all is down the quartz tree, and that's why we needed that silica from those mushrooms. You are going to be able to make the blade runners. You need 50 silica to unlock this, and you're also going to need a little bit to actually make one of these, but this is really a game changer. Now, if you look under the inventory sheet, you can also see a leg slot, so this is in a specific slot. I've already made them over here and equipped them, and with blade runners you can now run really fast and jump really far, and you can actually jump on top of these 4 height foundations now as well really easily. All in all, this is a game changer. It will make you so much more efficient move around your base. It takes a few minutes to get used to if you're used to the slower speed, because you might actually run down a cliff or something like that at this speed. But trust me, you're never going to want to live without it as soon as you get it. And then last but not least, we are going to progress a little bit down this sulfur tree. You want to unlock black powder, and you want to unlock the Nobelisk detonator, so you can make both the Nobelisks as well as something to detonate them with. Now, this is going to take a small amount of pipes and also a small amount of black powder. Now, you might be wondering, should we automate black powder? I actually recommend that you don't. I'll show you why. If you want to make black powder, you actually do that. It's not over here. Do you do that over here? Yeah, you do it, but you first have to unlock a TVA. So sorry about that. Let me quickly unlock that. There we go. Hadn't actually done that yet. And make sure you click confirm, otherwise you won't be able to craft it. Making 50 of these only takes like, I don't know, 20 seconds at the most. As you can see, it's really fast. You're going to need a little bit more than that, but me explaining why you shouldn't automate this is actually taking more time than it would actually require you to build this. So as you can see, there's no reason to automate production of black powder because it's so easy to make that. And once you do, yeah, you have quickly enough to unlock this, then you are going to unlock the next step with some pipes. Make a detonator and also make some obelisks, and then we're good to go for our next destination. Now, our destination for today is the Activia Note that is on this little island that's actually kind of sort of attached to the larger island that we built our coal facility on. Now, it's very easy to actually reach that, but you can go through like the mainland and then build a bridge. We're going to build that bridge anyway, but I actually recommend that you go there through the side of where we have our coal facility. You can get up on the top of the island through the back over here. Just watch out, there are some dangerous creatures here. And actually when you get on the top here where I'm now, there's actually going to be a couple of hogs here, those really fast running creatures that ram into you. And there is actually going to be a larger version of that that's a lot more dangerous than the normal version on here as well. You can actually easily defeat them by just standing on anything that's slightly raised, like a little rock like this. They will kind of just stand there, try to ram into you, but of course they can't actually scale the wall, so you can just like kind of hit them like that. The smaller rocks actually work really well for that as well, because rocks like this, they have a very hard time actually getting on top of, and you can easily knock them over. Now the second reason actually the two reasons that I recommend that you take this route is there is actually a wreckage over here, a drop pod, which you can open up as long as you bring some of these modular frames with you to get a hard drive. So while you're exploring anyway, might as well get those hard drives because those alternate recipes can be really useful. Now the second reason I recommend that you go here is because if you look on the top of this platform, there is going to be one of those yellow slugs that you can already see over there that you can easily pick up when you're here as well. So it's just those tiny little things. Make sure you pick them up and collect them while you move around. Same goes for the blue slugs. I'm not pointing out every single time one of those slugs is here because especially the blue slugs are very, very obviously placed usually. But collecting them as you go is very efficient because we are going to be using them at some point. And then, last but not least, on the far north side of this little island, you will find these two huge boulders. They are actually on top of our Activia Note, and it's like I knew that. So we have brought our little obelisk detonator that we are going to use to great effect. Make sure you reload it. It took me a while to figure out how this actually works the first time around. You can place one of these over there, and then you press the right mouse button and blow them up. Really satisfying, but also really useful, so now we can actually access this Activia Note. Now, in order to make the most use out of that, we are going to have to do a couple of things. We're going to have to bring power over here. We're going to build a very simple platform. We're going to remove all these trees, but what you can actually also do, now we have this now we have this obelisk detonator, is that we can blow up trees. You won't actually get any resources from them if you do, but you can also blow up those rocks that were in the way. You can do that actually in our main base as well. There were some rocks sticking out here and there in our main base, so that will just make our life a lot easier in terms of actually building a neat facility. Now I'm actually just going to set up a very basic facility over here, show you the end product, and then walk you through what you're going to need to do, because it's not complicated, but it is going to be extremely useful. And there we go, a pretty straightforward facility. Like I said, nothing complicated, but this is going to be vital for our further progress. Now we have one miner in the back, we have 3 smelters in order to process all that ore into Ethereum ingots, and then we have 4 smelters to produce those ingots into wires. Now as you can see, I actually split down the production into half. So half of this is going to go on this belt into a awesome sink, and this awesome sink is going to make sure that we get access to a lot of more fun stuff later on. And we are actually going to be producing so much wire here that it doesn't actually fit onto a single Mark 1 belt, sorry, Mark 2 belt. We're going to be producing 200 per minute. So the other half is going to go into the storage unit. Now this is actually going to be way more than we need. So I actually recommend that you place down an additional splitter and then maybe combine that with a merger over here. So let me place that down, one of those over here, something like this, and then connect that up with a belt as well. Just to make sure that you're not wasting any production. Now this won't actually be able to handle all of this throughput, but you can easily upgrade the last belt over here, and that's only going to be this tiny little bit of belt as soon as we get the Mark III belts unlocked. Now, I actually hooked everything up, but as you can see it's not currently producing, and that's because we have a lot of ore here at the moment, but we don't actually have the rest of the recipes. So this is why we have built a temporary MAM over here, so we can go down the unlocking 3 in the Ethereum. Now as you can see, I already unlocked the Ethereum so I could scan for it. Now we're going to want to unlock the ingots, then we're going to want to unlock the wires, and I'll take it from there in a moment. Two quick side notes. I made a little design mistake in the overview I just showed you. So there's actually going to go Ethereum ore in this middle belt over here, then it's going to come out in the back, and then it's going to go all the way around, as you can see, combined into a single belt, of course, and then split out across the constructors again. I actually did it the other way around initially, and that of course does not work. So make sure you do it correctly from the get-go. Something else that I just want to mention in case you don't know, if you've set the recipe in any building, for example this constructor over here, and you press Ctrl-C, so copy-paste basically like in most other programs, then you can actually Ctrl-V to paste it into every other building after that. So it makes it really efficient to set up a whole line of constructors or miners or whatever you're going to be doing in such a way that you don't have to manually set every recipe. And then once you have your Ethereum base up and running, you should be able to easily unlock Ethereum electronics. It does cost 100 wire, but it actually is really fast to produce. At this rate, we're producing 200 per minute, so it should take only half a minute. And then you get access to a couple of very awesome items. So Power Poles Mark II. 300 Ethereum wire to unlock, should take you another few minutes just to wait for that production to happen, but these are going to be massively useful. They allow you to connect 7 wires to one power pole rather than 4, so it makes placing down power poles a lot more convenient. The power poles themselves actually do cost Ethereum wire as well, so from now on make sure you always have maybe 1 stack of wire on you. That should last you for a very long time. But that's not the only thing you want to go and unlock. You also need to unlock the AI limiter. Now that by itself doesn't do anything, but you are going to have to craft about 10 of those in order to unlock the smart splitter. Now the smart splitter is awesome. This is going to be vital for all our builds from here on out, just to make sure they are very efficient. We don't have to fiddle around too much with making sure items are actually going where they need to go. The smart splitter itself does actually need AI limiters in order to be built, but I actually recommend not automating this specific item. The reason for that is, in order to make Ethereum wire, in order to make the AI limiter, you're going to need copper sheets, and setting up a whole facility for the copper sheets to be brought somewhere close to the Ethereum and then being made into AI limiters. We might want to do that at some point, but you don't actually need that many AI limiters. It's once again one of those buildings that one of those items that you're going to, if you make like 1 stack by hand, it will take you 2 minutes. If you set up an entire facility in order to make that 1 stack, it's going to take you maybe an hour, maybe less, but it's going to take you a lot longer. And in that time you could make several stacks of these items and not have to look after that for a very, very long time. So again, if you want to automate it, you can actually do that. There are actually copper nodes right here, so you could make some little copper sheet facility, make sure you bring the copper sheets over here and then make them automated. But like I said, once again, I don't recommend doing that. I do recommend actually making use of a smart splitter. And just to explain how a smart splitter works in case you don't know, I actually built one over here. So I replaced the original splitter that was here. As you can see, there's a lot of items going in, there's items coming out, but nothing is on this side belt. And that's because you actually have to program these things. So by default, only the center output is being used, and it will just send anything through that is going to go on that center output. But you can actually set that to a specific item. Now, I don't need to do that in this case because there's only one specific item on this belt. But if you have multiple different items on a single belt, you can use this to split, like, say, you can actually use the search function, the quick wire onto the center, and then, for example, something else on the right. Now, what I actually recommend doing in a lot of situations is just having the default setting used. So you split anything down to the middle. No. Yep, there we go. And then have this set to overflow. Now what this does is that any item that doesn't actually fit on this central belt will be put on the side belt. Now as you can see, it currently isn't actually doing anything. And that is because currently there's less than 120 items per minute going on this middle belt. And the storage unit is not full. But as soon as the storage unit is full, and it will become full at some point, even though it will take a while, all the remaining production will actually go on this side belt and into the sink. So that just makes sure that we're not wasting too many items being produced. Now, of course, that does mean that in that case, about 100 of these items are going to go down this side belt, and then this Mark II belt over here will have 200 Ethereum per minute on its belt, which doesn't fit on a Mark II belt, so we'll have to upgrade that. But I guess you can see the point. Let's just make sure that all this overproduction, if we upgrade this little tiny belt over here, will actually go into the sink and not be wasted, not just sitting there. Now this system is actually something you can apply to pretty much everything we've built so far. For example, the cable facility that we built is probably going to be overflowing, same for the copper wire. So setting up a sink over there with an overflow system might be very useful, just to make sure we get some tickets. Now speaking of tickets, or coupons, sorry, I always think of them as tickets. Anything that goes into the sink will count towards some point system, and depending on how many points you get coupons you can print. You can use those in the awesome shop to get some customizable items that are all very handy if you want to make your buildings look good. Now the cost will quickly go up as you get more coupons. As you can see, we already have 9, but the next one, the 10th one, will cost a lot more points than the first few. So that also means that as we are scaling up our facility, we want to be building more sinks just to make sure that we have more coupons to spend on awesome looking stuff. So that means that now we have bombs to clear our working areas. We have blade runners to move around way faster than we've done before. We now have power poles that allow us to connect up to 7 wires. We have splitters that allow us to make a lot more intricate builds. And we are now producing coupons so we can actually make use of the awesome shop. All of that should only have taken you about 1.5 to 2 hours, depending of course on how fast you build, how much exploring you did, etc. In the meanwhile, we've also been able to pick up 2 hard drives for alternate recipes. I won't actually be using alternate recipes for now, just to make sure that I don't make any builds that you can't actually follow along, because the recipes you get from the hard drives are actually random. But if you do, please make sure that you build whatever you want to build, so don't feel forced to follow me just in case. You can always default back to the recipes that you want, but if you have very useful alternate recipe, by all means use them. Now of course you can remove the MAM and the equipment workshop at this point, or the workbench I mean. I do recommend just setting this little bit facility up in such a way that it's easy to reach. It's a little bit in an awkward position, so as you can see, I built a little bridge here to the top floor of the island. I built, well, actually 2 bridges, you probably only need 1, to the mainland. Actually did also build a bridge down there to the lower part of the island, just in case I'm walking around and I want to get back here. Just having some logistics in place so you can actually reach wherever you want to go easily is always very useful to do. I also recommend just making sure this little facility looks a little bit nice. I use the word little a lot there. And doing so, you can easily do so just by having some half walls around here. Just also make sure you don't fall off, because especially if you are still getting used to the Blade Runners, it's really easy to throw yourself off a cliff, and having a wall in place will just make that a little bit less likely to happen. Now, I do hope you enjoyed this. In those 1.5 hours that we've been setting all of this up, we actually were producing those steel beams and steel pipes in the background, along with rotors, frames, etc. All of that production should still be going on, and of course that means that once we now get back to our main base, we should have a lot of those resources we actually need to unlock the next milestones. Now, of course, I'll be doing that over the next few episodes, so make sure you join in. If you're still here, you're awesome, and I hope to catch you in the next one.